Ravi, did Lakshmi sir join?
Not yet, sir. I just called him, but he's busy. His phone is busy. I
No problem, no
sent a
problem.
message also. So we will
No
start
problem,
within
no
five
problem.
minutes. Within 5 minutes, we will start. I
Yeah,
will
okay,
start the meeting. You
okay, okay.
can introduce.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Hi, sir. Santosh, sir. Shall we start? I think time is 7:10 already. Santosh, sir. Sir, sir, shall we start? Solid 7 turn. So we'll start the people will join later also. So this
Okay.
meeting also live streaming in YouTube channel, CDS YouTube channel. It is live streaming now.
Okay.
So I
So
will,
there are people
I will,
live, right?
uh, yeah. People they can see in YouTube Center for the Studies YouTube channel live.
Okay.
So okay, I will
Okay.
start the today. So
Okay.
good evening, everyone, and good morning who are joining in from abroad, particularly from USA. So today we have the lecture series 55. Today our topic is Dr. Ambedkar's perspective on Constitution and Social Security. Today we have the speaker, Dr. Dalit Kandare, a Associate Professor of Social Work, Pacific University, USA. So I think about more about speaker. I think Professor Santosh Vatsal will give the brief introduction about the today's speaker, and also he will moderate the today's session. So I welcome Santosh Vatsal. Please introduce the speaker and moderate the today's session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ravi. And first of all, I deeply congratulate Center for Dalit Studies for organizing such a grand celebration, though it's online, but extremely significant. And this documentation through the CDS to commemorate and celebrate the 75th anniversary of the great Indian Constitution, the document that holds democracy uh, still very effective in our country, and a model for the world as we are seeing the deterioration of democratic values across the world. I think Indian Constitution stands a landmark and guiding force with the great and the tireless efforts of Dr. Ambedkar. Uh, I very happy for the team and the great work that CDS has been done till 55th talk, especially in this context. And I'm also extremely happy today that we have uh, Professor Lalit Khandare joining us from America. It is early morning for him, and I first of all really wanted to appreciate his time, generosity, and efforts to be with us this morning and your evening in India. Dr. Lalit Khandare is an associate professor of social work at Pacific University, Portland, in America. And before joining his PhD program, he completed his MSW from Tata Institute of Social Science, and he also finished his MPhil in Planning and Development from IIT Bombay. And he served on various committees, including University Personnel Committee and the Faculty Senate, uh, which is an achievement, and we congratulate him for that wholeheartedly. Dr. Khandare has taught courses in research program, evaluation, research method, and in the social work program, and the PhD in educational leadership and the graduate psychology program with early 24 years of more than 24 years of experience in social work and research practice and teaching, about 19 of which were he spent in the US. He has extensive experience in global social work education, trauma, mental health, and global health issues, and he is a fellow of the Global Young Academy Germany, and also held leadership and services role in the organization such as the Council on Social Work Education. And apart from that, he published his papers on various international journals. So I'm extremely happy for Lalit sir and Professor Lalit to be with us in this evening. Apart from his educational achievement, he is very committed, dedicated to the cause and the vision of Dr. Ambedkar. More than that, Lalit is a wonderful friend and extremely helpful for those who are willing and aspiring to study abroad in UK. He mentored many students how to come to top universities in the world. So I'm very happy such a dedicated, fine, committed, excellent mind is with us and is going to give two series of lectures this Saturday and coming Saturday. This Saturday, Dr. Lalit is going to speak about Dr. Ambedkar's perspective on constitution and social security. I'm not going to speak much about it, but when we talk about democracy and constitution, it's not merely about holding the democratic politics intact. It's extremely important, as Dr. Ambedkar himself evoked, the spirit that for flowering the political democracy, it has to preceded by the social democracy. If society is not democratic, and if it is a mere burden of upholding the democratic values by merely marginalized and oppressed communities for their liberation, that's not going to help for the successful democracy. And we are at the very important juncture, very important phase of democracy, which where values are tested, where your politics is tested, where your civil life is tested, and that context aspect of social security brings a extremely important paradigm and perspective. So I'm very happy today we have Lalit, and I won't stand between you and Lalit. I would invite, like to invite Professor Lalit. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting this invitation. And I would wholeheartedly thank you for behalf of CDS and would like to invite you to deliver your presentation today.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Santosh Kumar Raut, for wonderful invitation and also the introduction. So I'll share my screen if it is okay. Yeah. Um, Presentation.
I would also request briefly for participant if they can put their mic on mute while presentation is on, and of course, then you're welcome to ask some questions to Professor Lalit. Yes, Lalit, please.
Okay, so I thank all the members of Center for Dalit Studies, and I see that several other organizations like IDS, CDR, National Alliance for Social Justice, Dalit Coalition, um, People's Campaign for Socioeconomic Equity, Dalit Bahujan Front, National Movement for Dalit for Land, Labor and Justice, Dalit Human Rights Defender Network, National Council of Women's Leaders. So all jointly organizing this series of talks on quite important time in our history of 75th anniversary of Indian Constitution. So especially appreciate Chairperson Melapili Lakshmaya and also Dr. Santur Raut for inviting me for this talk. So as we gather here, I'll be talking on Dr. Ambedkar's vision on constitution and social security. And I received like some messages like when people saw this talk, I'll be delivering. So sometimes I think people get frustrated. We always go back in the history. What about the current scenario? So I'll be certainly talking about how those thoughts are relevant in current times. And also this question of social safety's net for uh, Indian population is extremely important, and we have been grappling with this issue since our independence. I hope you are able to see my slides.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh,
Yes,
they're
sir.
visible.
Yes, sir.
okay, great. Today, as we gather to explore this profound question posed by Dr. Ambedkar and rightly pointed out by Dr. Santosh Raut, um, and in 1949, the question was, can political democracy thrive without social and economic democracy? So this has been like, this quote has been used numerous times, but we have to think about how it is relevant on ground, tangibly. So Dr. Ambedkar's life work shaped Indian Constitution. He fought against caste oppression, and he was anchored in the radical vision where social insurance serves. Social insurance, I may be using different words for social security. So sometimes he might have used word social insurance or social security, but largely we are. I will delve into the history of the social security globally, and what was happening before and during the time of Dr. Ambedkar and what he was envisioning for future. And to grasp this urgency of this question about the emancipation of people through various mechanisms to incorporate those constitutionally. So that was his major focus, and we also must place Dr. Ambedkar's ideas within the global context, contrasting them with the historical models such as Bismarckism or Beveridgean or American framework, and evaluate their unfinished potential in 21st century in India. The historical examination of social security is crucial, as many countries that transitioned to democracy faced collapse around these policies, uh, and especially in the global south, not so much in global north. While only few succeeded, we see that according to Ambedkar, the latter demonstrated high degree of social and economic democracy compared to their counterparts. So the democracies that thrived has invested heavily on social and economic welfare and rights of those population. And that was the fundamental and foundational reason for their survival. This historical review on social security is also significant, as many newly independent countries struggle to sustain themselves despite adopting democratic values, while only few remain stable. So, according to Dr. Ambedkar, those that endured exhibited greater degree of um economic and social democracy. So not only they invested in those spheres, but also shown quite remarkable improvement in terms of the benchmark of progress on those indicators. He also emphasized the social and economic democracy forms the very fabric of political democracy. This insight remains highly relevant in um, today's context, where we have uh, various problems that we are facing in modern India. Over the past like 4 centuries, the concept of social security has undergone significant transformation, evolving from localized poor relief to the comprehensive state-run welfare system. This evolution reflect broader socioeconomic shifts from agrarian to industrialized economies, from laissez-faire liberalism to modern state welfare. More recently, towards neoliberal cutbacks and digital welfare initiatives. So, as we set up this context for this talk, we also confront a fundamental contradiction at the heart of modern India. So we boast of like always boast of like longest written constitution or biggest democracy. Yet 90% of our workforce remain without social security, tangible social security. While we honor Dr. Ambedkar as an architect of our constitution, we simultaneously excludes millions from essential welfare schemes. Although we have embraced global social insurance models, we continue to neglect the pervasive issue of caste and our own unique systems of organized inequality. So there is this paradox that compels us to re-examine Dr. Ambedkar's transformative vision of social insurance, not merely as a bureaucratic policy to enforce, but as a crucial step in the journey from like colonial rule to truly independent India. And for many, it represented like a constitutional reparation for centuries of operations and caste-based like apartheid, acknowledging that past injustices are paving the way for more equitable future. And I'm not like merely focusing on like mere here academic research paper or academic discourse to celebrate like 75th anniversary of our constitution, but as we speak, millions of our informal workers, waste speakers, construction laborers, domestic help live without health insurance, pensions, or unemployment protections. So how we have to think about the ground reality and how all of this is relevant for the population that we are talking about and the population Dr. Ambedkar cared for. And the precarity or precarious job scenarios of these millions of people is not accidental. It is a direct result of design choices that ignored Dr. Ambedkar's warning. So we'll look at historical evolution of social security globally. We'll conduct some comparative analysis of global welfare models through Ambedkarite lens, and then look at contemporary policies and programs in India, briefly touch upon them where we are on those fronts. So let us look at the historical um, um, let us look at how the social insurance or social security evolved over the period of time globally in different religious and cultural contexts. In South Asia, we had religious charity and rules of the kings. In Islam, there was like concept of zakat for administration and supporting of the population of the state. In larger Western world, it began with Elizabeth Poor laws of 1601, around 1600, beginning of 1600, where they established England's first comprehensive welfare system during the economic crisis. England faced severe economic depressions with high unemployment and famine. Poverty was widespread in England. So, as we look at some of this historical context, we will see something. There was some cause that led to tangible social policies, and as we see what was happening during this time in the England. So poverty was widespread due to economic instability. Enclosure movements were there, and the unemployment was on the rise. Queen Elizabeth legislation created three categories of assistance. So the helpless, deserving poor, help the deserving poor, aged and disabled receiving shelter and support. And then there was another category, undeserving poor. The willing, unemployed were given the working tools, while vagrant faced punishment. So these were three categories. These laws remained almost like there for 250 years. So local parish church clergy implemented this system through tax-funded relief, including like almhouses for indoor assistance. So as you see, these uh, policies emerged from the church and how they wanted as a church, they had some responsibilities towards society. But however, there were some categorization of people who should be supported in terms of priorities. The laws mandated like family responsibilities requiring multi-generational support and allowing forced apprenticeships for poor children. 1662, there was amendment restricting like mobility by permitting the parishes to deport non-resident poor and limit their aid to the local residents. So people who are staying in the same place were prioritized. This framework introduced enduring principles of government organized poverty relief um, balanced with like work requirements. So people who are willing to work, get skills were supported. And you can see how those have continued to shape modern policies in Western world. And these laws remained like has been there for long until 1800, where we have been there has been some shift, especially similar laws were there in Europe. 19th century, like reforms saw the enactment of like Poor Law Amendment in 1834 due to rising cost and criticism of old system-led reforms. The relief were not only was only available to work in workhouses, uh, and they also had harsh conditions to deter members to remain dependent on those working conditions. There were people who were had less eligibility principles where the conditions in workhouses were worse than like lowest paid labor. And we see that these poor law systems remained there until like 1940s with the emergence of National Assistance Act of 1948 formally abolished the poor law system. So introduced more um, contemporary law in, and if we go back further, the early 20th century, before that we had Bismarck social insurance starting in 1883 to 1889. The industrialization and workers' unrest led to conservative welfare reforms under Ottoman Bismarck in Germany. So this was one of the first compulsory insurance system in the world. That led to the formation of health insurance, accident insurance, old age, and disability insurance, and employer worker contribution. So it was jointly funded, not necessarily state funded. This was this insurance, social insurance, inspired modern social insurance models worldwide. So it is important to look at what was happening long back. And we also see the current, the birth of social security in America in response to the Great Depression that all of you may be aware. So especially in 1930s, the economic collapse exposed like harsh truth, where we have seen uh, no social, hardly any social safety net for aging, unemployed, and vulnerable citizens. So almost 50% of seniors were in poverty. Almost 15 million unemployed who were part of almost 25% of the workforce. The widespread bank failure wiped out people's life saving. So quite crisis on people who deposited or saved money for their life. President Roosevelt in 1935 established Social Security Act that created like revolutionary three-part system. One was old age pensions. Workers pay and receive guaranteed retirement income, unemployment insurance that supported temporary job seekers, and the aid to the dependent children. So that was uh, for supporting the children uh, uh, who needed for comprehensive support, not only from their parents but also the state supported them. So this landmark legislation transformed America's social contracts, proving government could successfully protect citizens from life's greatest economic risk while maintaining personal responsibility through contributory financing. So, um, and there were some famous economists like Mays and others who were instrumental in taking this forward. And Dr. Ambedkar had, as he was studying in Columbia and uh, also in UK, he was looking at the development globally on this social insurance in US and how it evolved in the Europe. So it is important to look at how the timeline of that period, and it also um, was period of like where you see this the first post First World War, and also the Second World War was coming in future. And we also see that post war measures were important to address, especially in around 1945 to 1970s. So those policies, especially during liberal reforms in UK around 1908 to 1911. There were Old Age Pension Act of 1908, non-contributory pension for poor elderly. There were National Insurance Act and health and unemployment insurance. And why we are looking at this historical context, what was shaping in the mind of Dr. Ambedkar as he was drafting constitution. Even in modern time, we always like grapple about when we think about healthcare, we always like think about like private hospitals or think or mushrooming small clinics. Um, and when we think about education, there are private schools. When we think about pension, there has been up and down, and only I think around 3 to 4% of our employed people are in public sector. So around 3 to 4 in private sector. Majority of them are in informal sector. So when we talk about uplifting the masses, uh, what um, what has happened in global north or global south in the countries that has invested in their social and economic foundations that Dr. Ambedkar was emphasizing. So these were the policies that has created skill. We sometimes just merely listen skill development programs in recent times in India, but those programs those were tangible programs in Germany or a lot of European countries, even to the large extent in China and other countries. So those they invested in those specific programs, and state had responsibility to institute those. So and as you see in 1935, that act has created more robust policies in the US as well. And as we see, those were in response to Great Depression. However, the emerging or post-colonial societies or countries uh, had to shape their fundamental human resource through these policies. However, we had some idea, like from, because we were British colonies, so some of those things were coming from UK's model of Bavarian model. However, we have to and again those policies were envisioned in some constitution. We'll look at what were incorporated. However, a lot need to be done in all of this front. So there were some challenges of each of these models. So Bismarck's model was like tripartite model, where worker, employer, and state had to invest in those uh, plans to support the employees. It excluded the agrarian workers. And similarly in India, the landless laborers or the informal economy workers, as I was pointing out, almost 93% are out of those policies. Presumed equal bargaining powers, challenging. So we can see how the caste hierarchical power orders may interfere in Indian context. The EP Employee Provident Fund in India became a saving scheme rather than insurance. So we have to see the vision of how those policies were framed, but however that those become like saving account. In UK, Bavarian model, where we looked at the money was collected through the taxation, and you can see in 1947 India's taxable base was merely 1%. Gradually it has increased, but and the flat benefits could perpetuate further caste disparities. There were DPSP like policies were aspirational than justifiable. In the directive principles of the state policies, we will look at some of those which were not really enforceable, which were aspirational. And so the urge of Dr. Ambedkar was to enforce those through fundamental rights or make it mandatory. But India was like evolving as an economy, so there was a burden on the state to develop their economic, fiscal support to those policies. The US hybrid social security system excluded again agriculture or domestic workers who were again primarily African Americans or other marginalized groups. And that also showed how the similarly like SCST or other OBCs who are in the informal sectors may be facing similar problems. So it was important that Dr. Ambedkar was like always focusing on how we can get those policies in the constitutional framework. So Dr. Ambedkar, as member of Labor at his first session, at the first session of plenary labor conference in New Delhi, 1943. So he emphasized that social security is not merely like in the directive principles of state policy, but it should be considered as right. He rejected charity-based welfare, framing social security as fundamental workers' entitlement in industrialized economy. He also was aware about, as I was mentioning, what was happening globally and also international labor organizations conventions. He argued that India must adopt unemployment insurance or health coverage and pensions. So there was minimum standard conventions in 1935 4 by the ILO. There was a proposition that employer, worker, and state should share, um, and especially if there are poor people who are not able to support. So in those scenarios, the state should intervene and support those uh, tax burden. They highlighted the need for like legal penalties for employer who are not able to follow or evade these policies. So the universal coverage should also cover like agriculture domestic workers, and he criticized the exclusion of agriculture or domestic workers in existing laws. Also highlighted protection for marginalized groups like Dalits, Adivasis, and women facing systemic uh, exclusions. So in terms of social security policies and programs that are shaped by Dr. Ambedkar's leadership, he advocated for like labor rights, and laid the foundation for modern welfare system. And social security was fundamental in all of this work, which is not talked a lot in our discourse when we talk about social justice and equality. What were the contributions of Dr. Ambedkar as labor member of Viceroy's executive councils and chair of Constitution Drafting Committee? And he and all of us may be aware about how some of these key policies, what we see, they're influenced by his work around, so example, the directive uh, principles of the state policies, Article 41, the right to work, education, and public assistance in unemployment, old age, and disability. So he, so this is interesting article, which we see that it is in directive state policy. However, there were efforts and how it can be made more mandatory for state to implement it. Article 42, just and human working condition, maternity benefits. There were specific acts that emerged, as you see on the slides. Also, I advocated for Article 43, advocated for living wages for the workers. So we can see the Manrega, the compulsory, like some work support by the that was started a couple of decades back, and we see they had some challenges, but those had or EPF or ESIC had history of evolution and the work that Dr. Ambedkar led in foundational time. So that has led to this. Some of the policies which are there, not really robust, but some policies are there. There were Industrial Dispute Acts in 1947 that introduced like arbitration or dispute resolution, and Dr. Ambedkar pushed for like compulsory arbitration in those scenarios. He established worker rights to fair wages and social job security. And we also see that the minimum, he advocated for minimum wages in depending on specific sectors, what kind of wages should be there. And he was also part of like fair wages committees. Health insurance, that is employee state insurance for industrial worker hospitals. There should be sickness or maternity benefits. So he advanced for employer worker state tripartite, which almost cover now 3.5 crore workers. Um, Pension and saving, many times I think people across left, right, and other ideology, they question like what was contribution of Dr. Ambedkar in emancipation of labor workforce. So there are numerous policies that he instituted, but we have to look at how those policies maybe have challenges in current times. Um, there were paid leaves for working women. There were policies around um, that were rooted in Dr. Ambedkar's vision of gender justice in labor laws. And we also see this EPF was modeled after his 1943 proposal for mandatory employment contributions. So he was like looking at how to make it like more robust, where it is employer have, if they are not complying, there will be some regulations to enforce those policies as well. We also see that in social security, for informal worker post 2000, we see that it has been constantly delayed, or recent schemes to certain extent reflect his ideal of universal coverage. Example, PM Sri Yogi Mandan scheme of 2019, pension for unorganized workers, or e-Shram portal of 2021, national database for informal laborers, or Ayushman Bharat, health insurance for poor, aligned with some of the employers' provident fund ethos that were established long back. However, we look at some of these programs which has some modern like digital spaces where it is documented and all of that, but large number of people may not come in that, may not get like robust benefits that uh, that that compares with current inflation cost and living arrangement. So people are somehow, I think, surviving, but they need more robust support. Um, Dr. Ambedkar also demanded a caste-based affirmative action in welfare that remained unfulfilled. So it was not only just some of these policies, but also how to uplift specific population who were beyond the support for within those some of these schemes, because many of uh, uh, the workforce who are in formal or industrial workforce do not capture large segment of the population. So there can be alternative ways to bring people at equitable spare through education or employment. Uh, and there were labor welfare funds like state-run schemes for mine or tea plantation workers that if we can see echoes the call for 1943 Dr. Ambedkar's call for sectoral board that can create some policies for different sectors, employees from those sectors. The Indian, similar to tripartite bodies, Indian Labour Conference established in 1942 under Dr. Ambedkar's leadership that led to support advocating for some of these policies. And we see that there is unfinished agenda of Dr. Ambedkar's proposals, especially unemployment insurance. So still absent, except Manrega Rural Employment Guarantee, which is again not whole year. It is just for few months. And the caste responsive welfare. So there is no specific caste specific or SC, ST, OBC specific social security programs. Uh, uh, there may be few based on the states, but hardly remain uh, not seen in India. Universal coverage. So as we were talking, 93% of the informal workforce lacks EPF or ESI benefits, which Dr. Ambedkar envisioned for everyone, and not merely a saving account schemes. In state and minority, Dr. Ambedkar wrote about uh, various policies like separate settlements or separate electorate, public education, industries and agriculture should be part of like that supporting the fiscal support for a lot of these programs. And state shall Article 46 of Constitution Committee constitutional commitment to economic justice that advocated for state shall have promote special care for educational and economic interest of the weaker section, especially for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and shall protect them from social injustices and all forms of exploitation. So we can see some policies are implemented. However, some policies around land reforms or scholarships or job reservations in public-private sector remained largely unfulfilled. So that state and minority proposition, that what we see in current constitution may not be like comprehensive idea of Dr. Ambedkar vision, because he was working with several minds and people from different perspective and ideologies. However, Dr. Ambedkar's vision was more advanced in terms of bringing social and economic democracy on the ground. And we see some improvement, some in terms of affirmative action policy through some public sector jobs or education. But again, large mass remain disconnected or not benefited from the larger vision of Dr. Ambedkar. Because many times I think people who criticize Dr. Ambedkar, he was like merely focusing on the reservations or uh, in education or scholarships, but people are not aware about his larger vision of democratic India beyond caste, people who are not able to support their basic minimum needs, how the state need to intervene, modeling on Western and also global South economies. And as we see the deterioration of this further deterioration of these policies as we privatize many profit-making public sectors. So a lot of those people who, as they go in private sector, many of those support systems goes away. The modern times, we also see the emergence of Code of Civil Social Security in 2021. And as people who are concerned about Dr. Ambedkar's vision and or vision of Shah Periyar or many social reformers or people like Jyotiba Phule and other reformers, we have to investigate and keep close eye on emerging social policies in current India and how they are fulfilling those visions of social equity and justice for masses. So this was a landmark legislation, Code of Social Security in 2021, that consolidated and reformed exists consolidated and reforms existing labor laws related to social security. It replaced 9 existing laws, including Employee Provident Fund, Employee State Insurance, Maternity Benefits. It has some coverage and some exclusions. So uh, it looks like a robust and quite expensive, comprehensive programs, but we have to look at how it is benefiting people and masses at ground. It extends some social security for gig and platform workers like Swiggy or Uber drivers, but does not make it mandatory for the employee. The informal sectors, so again, many informal workers, agriculture laborers, domestic workers remain outside the formal social security net. So threshold for applicability is like there are some provisions for EPF, ESIC, but those apply only to the establishment above certain employees threshold. So it remains not mandatory for small businesses. And we know that small businesses, small um, shops and all of that remain the major workforce in India. There is no clear guidelines in terms of funding. The code does not specify how Social Security for informal worker will be funding. So it is raising concern for the sustainability of those programs. The employer contribution, employer may fear increased cost due to mandatory contribution for certain benefits. So it is challenging in those fronts as well. So Dr. Ambedkar was like emphasizing specific sectors like agriculture or some industries that should support social insurance. So we have to look at example few decades back, the Indian government started like 5% of the corporate revenue should go in social sector, and that was incentivized by the government. So something like that need to be instituted to, and that can go, that money can go in this social insurance or sectors that can benefit informal laborers, people who are in informal economy. There has been a limited unemployment insurance, like unlike some global systems, India lacks comprehensive unemployment insurance. So people in many countries receive unemployment insurance. So we always talk about like the developed countries have more money, so they can afford it. But even some of the Latin America or in other countries, we see some of these policies where we can because we always like criticize sometimes US or other countries which maybe more people think they are more capitalist driven. However, there are these policies like unemployment insurance or maternity benefit that again is like in India we have 26 weeks, um, but implementation is weak, especially in the informal sector. There are challenges in terms of enforcement, as we see enforcement and compliances. The penalties for non-compliances are seen as like inefficient to deter violations. The lack of awareness is again big challenge. So people, I think largely in India, I think sometimes we just think that we get some minimum benefit during maybe election time or some policy programs to keep people alive. Uh, Not necessarily they are able to afford basic minimum need like housing um, or basic vehicle and other. So most of their life goes in basic survival, fulfilling basic survival needs, not able to get good basic education, or they cannot think beyond like what their next generation can do for higher education and all of that. So um, this social security or social insurance in terms of healthcare, education, unemployment benefit is extremely important for future generation. And although this code of social security is progressive step towards universal social security, the challenges remain in terms of like coverage, funding or implementation and enforcement. Um, and especially most important, equitable protection for all the workers, especially the marginalized communities. So I will conclude here with some reflection by Dr. Ambedkar's visionary blueprint on social insurance. We must ask ourselves: has India truly honored his or his constitutional promise of social and economic justice or democracy? His warning on political equality cannot survive without material justice. So that rings alarming today, especially 90% or more workforce remain excluded from basic social security net. And Dr. Ambedkar's genius lay in like comparative foresight. He dissected global models like Bismarck's exclusion or Beveridge's universality or America's gaps in America's social security gaps. Uh, to craft unique Indian model of insurance as a reparation for not only caste apartheid but also emancipation of masses from their economic injustices for who are suffering for thousands of years. So it like almost more than several decades after independence, our policies remained like fractured, extending privileges to the organized sector while abandoning informal workers and scheduled caste or scheduled tribes to the mercy of the charity. So the Social Security Act, the Code of Social Security, offers legislative window, but without socially conscious funding or employers' accountability or universal coverage. So it is again kind of at the risk of another hollow gesture, not about just it is not about just welfare, but it is about like dignity, where sanitation worker dies without healthcare, when uh, gig labor, old age is condemned to penury. We betrayed the Constitution's soul. Dr. Ambedkar's question in 1949 now demands our answer. Will we transform social insurance from bureaucratic scheme into like tool of emancipation? So let us reclaim his radical legacy to push for tri-party funded responsive like social security system, uh, and have rights for unions and workers to advocate for change. Um, advocate there should be more policymakers from the community or citizens should unite to enforce the Article 41 that guaranteed protection against unemployment and destitution. The stakes are quite important and high at this juncture. And Dr. Ambedkar reminded us that democracy is not merely a form of government, it is primarily mode of like associated living. Today we must choose, will India remain democracy of exclusion or finally become one of the shared like security, social security and constitutional conscience. Uh, so there is it is important time for reckoning now. So Jai Bhim, and thank you everyone for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Professor Lalit. Wow, I would say.
Professor Santosh, I joined. Please continue.
Yeah. Yes, I have seen. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. Means even when we published the title, I was wondering how you are going to frame this social security concept, which sounds sort of at times a bit abstract. But the way you discriminated between the saving and insurance, we think we have a lot of money, therefore we are secured. But bulk of money, and that also in a vertical economy, not necessarily will provide the insurance of life. So there is a huge difference between mere the saving capital, having a lot of money in your bank, and for that also you have to have an inheritance that comes from your family or society. And as Dr. Ambedkar very rightly pointed out, we are not equal in inheritance. In since annihilation of caste, till he is making policies and theories and implementing them into constitutional frame, he was very aware. So I'm so thankful for giving this brief historicity of the models, and also sort of the exclusion of agriculture, which is and land laborers and the workers. uh, these all sounds a familiar term, but this global model, how they are translated into Indian caste structure, where societies are unequal not only in religious and social lives, but also their economic life, in their political life. And because of this vulnerability, the policies are very easy to fabricate, or also very easy to give a picture that we are protecting the marginalized people. At the same time, they remain vulnerable in terms of their life insurances. So thank you very much for this comprehensive and in brief time you articulate the discourse so well. Thank you very much. Uh, I would, if there are any questions from audience, I would very happy to invite some questions. I also wanted to mention, Lalit, before I finish my sort of the introductory note. I'm at Harvard since 2 years, and Lalit teaching here from 25 years. By looking at these global models and translating that sort of sense of security and the worthiest life that Dr. Ambedkar wanted a lot of people should live, or majority should live, is not easy task, was not an easy task. And this aspect needs to be really discussed more deeply at its depth. So thank you very much, Lalit. Yeah, I would like to invite if there are questions from participants, please. Yes, Berwa sir.
Unmute.
Yeah, he needs to unmute, Ravi, probably.
Abhi?
Yes, sir. Please tell me, sir.
Oh, I was asking, you are at Harvard. What do you teach? Is it a university, Kennedy School, or where do you teach at Harvard? And
Sir,
what type of?
that that we can discuss later, sir. I would like to keep a question focus on what Professor Lalit has said. I teach Buddhism, social
I
justice,
will come to
Dr.
him, but
Ambedkar.
I was just curious because we had never met, or the first time on this portal. So I was just curious who Professor Raut is.
Thank you very much, sir. But I would like to keep focus on my friend Lalit.
I will, but I think it behooves on you to mention as an audience who you are. You can, even if you have one line, that will be fine.
Sir, I teach at Harvard Divinity School. I teach Buddhism and social justice and Dr.
Okay.
Ambedkar.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's good enough. One
Thank you.
line answer is good enough. My
Thank you.
next
Thank you.
question is with Professor Kandare. Sorry. I like the lecture. He spoke very well about the historical context from Ottoman Empire to till Dr. Ambedkar framed the Constitution and some of the policies in Manrega, etc. But what struck to me was the unorganized or informal sector. See, we have a economy, Indian economy is the public sector, which is the government money. Okay, so government jobs, whether you are in the state government or central government, they always have some economic security, like pension plan, whether you are a teacher, professor, or any government worker. The second sector is about the private sector, which is usually owned by the Adanis, Ambanis, Bajaj, etc. Now, there, first of all, we are there, as Dr. Ambedkar used to say, we are last to be hired and first to be fired. So that, and the share of the pie in the private sector is maybe 3%. I stand corrected if I'm wrong about that number, but I'm sure Professor Kandare would like to address that issue. Now, the third sector is unorganized, or what you call the informal sector, which dominates the 90% of our employment, you call it, or work sector, or the livelihood, etc. And that's where there is no security for them, for health sector, for the retirement. If you are one person in the member of five, if that person becomes sick, there is no security for that family. That is, private sector and public sector, if you are employed, no problem. But it is the biggest, to me, biggest issue is with the unorganized or so-called informal sector. Now, I'm sure, well, he gave a historic account with Dr. Ambedkar when he was a labor member. He made a lot of reforms and policies, even including into the constitution in the various sections that Kandare mentioned. So my question to professor is that, look, how from 47, when since the time India became a democratic institution, we adopted the constitution. Is now 75th year of our great constitution, which really is a great tribute to Indians after the independence from Britishers, because people thought, oh, India will not be able to survive, but the foundation of the constitution was great. It has able to survive, and hopefully it will be third largest economy in the world in coming years. But my biggest concern is, again, repeatedly come to the informal sector. Now, since the constitution was framed from the first minister of
Sir,
Nehru.
if you don't mind, would you please focus on your question, sir?
Yes. So
The
my,
other might be willing to ask question,
sure.
and Professor Khandare has to leave.
Okay, fine. Thank you for warning me about that. So, how will you judge the current policies of the government, not the government, well, government plus private sector, in terms of addressing the economic issues, healthcare issues, and social security? On the scale of A, the best one, and F means flunking. So how will you grade the current economic policies about the informal sector?
Yeah, so yeah, I cannot like give points, but I think any government in power, be it like Congress or BJP, or I think everyone talk about uh, greatest India or third biggest economy, and so it will not be at the cost of masses. So only few people cannot be rich, and that can indicate global uh, how India is faring at global level. The countries that are strong at global level has invested heavily on human resources. They have invested heavily on healthcare. They have heavily invested on in terms of um, unemployment insurance. I can give one example about the policies. Like example, in I think last decade or so, we have seen government talks about skill development programs, and the intention was amazing. They were looking at future emerging employment in various manufacturing or service sectors in as we compete with China and other countries. But what government has done, the skill development programs, they kind of outsource that to the
Mm.
private coaching institute. So people
Mm.
just they got money. I'm just giving you just rough example, and there are many thousands of programs. We need to evaluate what was happening. So the what those coaching institutes have done is just got the money, got people, got certificates, and this, on the numbers, this many people got skilled in whatever thousands of uh, trades. However, if we look at what China has done or what Germany has done or other countries, US has done, so US has like community colleges. Germany has very robust, like skilled, like similar to ITS. They have those programs. Or China has instituted huge infrastructure for that workforce. So we have it takes time to build those infrastructure, but government will have to invest. First, they have to study what they want to do, what they have to look at. What Dr. Ambedkar was looking anytime he will go in the history, he will look at what are the best practices in the world, and how that can be contextualized in the context of India. So we have to look at those programs and policies. And he also thought about like from where the money will come. So I think the government need to have honest um, intention to not necessarily intention to develop, but also intention to implement and take that whatever resources we have to the people in more tangible. But I think we don't invest much on evaluations in India. In most of the countries, they spend a lot of time evaluation. I think it is more kind of regulation policies in India. So yeah, there are, I think, lot need to be done. And the benchmark or the grade that you mentioned, I think that can be seen through the global human development index, or there are various factors. The development index, not merely economic or health or education, but looking at social safety, social security, or how people feel safe, how people feel equitable on gender, or how people are able to get their basic and higher education, how they are able to sustain, what are the minimum material needs they have, things. So there are a lot of indicators globally, and maybe one of the talk I can give those like talk on how to institutionalize those indicators in the constitution. So that, like in some of the Latin American and other countries, have instituted those benchmark, not necessarily is only economic GDP based, but other benchmark in their constitution to measure the progress. Thank you so much for the important question and highlight here.
Any other question?
Can I continue on second question? Professor Raut mentioned about the caste issue. Among the castes, especially the marginalized caste, we have the poorest socioeconomic status. And number, we don't have any, excuse me, inheritance money. So what the government policy will be to uplift the economic status of these people through the programs, various programs. And the issue of outsourcing, because the government has the money, that's the only taxpayer money government has it. And the taxpayer money used for outsourcing the technical studies and the other educational programs, to me, it is less like just like a fox in charge of the hen house. Because in private sector, we are 90%, more than 90% deprived as an employment. So until 90%, until unless we have more employment, our people cannot get a pension money and the social security and healthcare benefits. So that was my next my comment. I don't know if Professor Khanda would like to address it.
Yeah, again, I think we have to look at what other countries have done in terms of uplifting the masses. So example like Brazil. So one of the area Dr. Ambedkar focused on land reforms. So one of the political party emerged out of huge land redistribution to the masses. So we see those policies implemented in parts and parcel in some parts in India. And again, we have to look at, I think that may not be immediate solution, but I think we have to look at several policies, programs, comprehensive policies, programs in terms of healthcare, in terms of education in terms of employment. So in terms of employment, so once people have some degrees and education, be it skill development through ITS, more number of ITS, we have to create employment. So there should be how we can create local um, demand supply chain uh, where there are more companies, corporates we are employing. And also there can be policies on example, internship in corporates, which are not just random, because that was one of the important work of Dr. Ambedkar on employment exchange. I
Yes.
think many of you may have had that card in your college or after college days, but that was a part. So this is there are a lot of dots in this social security or programs where which has lost. Now we don't know how the internship
Hello. Hello. We are
public
missing
companies.
your-
So again, we look at how we have to look at how we can study what is happening globally. Now we are in this age of AI. Again, we see even the formal economy is or formal employment is disappearing rapidly. And also Dr. Ambedkar talked about like population policy. So yeah, but we have to think about one program or policy. And I think for me, most important is like healthcare, education, and employment. In these three spheres, how we can have some tangible policies and programs. And first, we have to evaluate what are the current policies, how we can provide some solutions, advocate for it. So educate, agitate, organize is the mantra Dr. Ambedkar has given. But we have not invested a lot in this sphere because it directly do not benefit people who may be benefited out of affirmative action policy. But there is Baba Sahib always talked about paying back to the masses, not only to your relatives and immediate middle class. Yeah.
Any other question, please?
Hello,
Okay. Yes.
sir. Yes, I am engineer
Santosh,
MR
Daroj ji,
Yes, sir.
is there any serious question you can ask?
No. Just information for 2 minutes.
Okay.
I think
So, what do you, hello?
go on, sir. Go
Hello.
on, sir. Go on, sir. Briefly, please. Yeah.
Daroj sir, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Jai Bhim to everybody. Dr. Ambedkar worked on various social securities and welfare policies, no doubt in it. But has he inserted land nationalization in any articles of the Constitution? Because in my perception, in the absence of equal land distribution, equity and equality could not be achieved, sir. So what do you think about this aspect, sir? Thanks. Over to you, Dr. Larissa. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. The land is India is like a agriculture-based economy. So I certainly we have to um, think about how the land can be equally distributed, not only in the rural area, but also as people immigrate in urban space. Again, I think beyond healthcare, education, and employment, the housing was one another aspect. So there were housing policies for marginalized communities to so and also Dr. Ambedkar talked about a resettlement. So I think that was one of the most important aspect beyond separate electorate, and that was about land. And that was in State and Minority. He elaborated that, where he looked at the future of segregation and discrimination, and he proposed the idea that, and I think it was there in South Africa and some other countries where people who example, scheduled caste communities who were maybe discriminated in small pockets because of their numbers. So creating a large chunk of population, substantial mass of population in some villages or regions, and investing in those separate settlement where they do not rely for their survival on the caste, Hindus or high caste. And I think uh, in terms of land distribution, there were some policies in Uttar Pradesh national. I think post Ambedkar, I think that was one of the biggest reform that the leaders after Ambedkar led. But I think that did not continue for long. But you see some pockets, it was implemented in some state. But
Yeah.
certainly, it is very important here.
And interestingly, in Article 31A, I think in the ninth schedule, which sort of shields specific land reforms for judicial review, but later on it was replaced by, I think, 300. So there were provisions and great attempts were made, but again, sort of inheritance mattered a lot while bringing equality, as Lalit sir rightly said. Probably last question because we are approaching time.
I
If
am
someone has...
Can I ask one question, sir?
Yes, sir, please.
With all my humbleness to the speaker of the day, Dr. Lalit Saab, and also with so many regards for an excellent presentation on the social security and this concept of constitution given by Baba Sahib Ambedkar. I have a serious requirement about the uh, issue of the right to vote as a social security. Lalit Saab.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the social security has got a lot of commanding role also with the right to vote also is what I feel as a layman.
Yeah.
Because it is assuring the people, the very common people, the intensely deprived to form the government, to decide what kind of government is to be desired, formed.
Yes.
The constitutional right, fundamental right. To what extent is it a social security, sir? That is the
Yes.
whole thing more curious about,
Yeah. So yeah, we don't have to frame everything under social security, but so voting right is for Dr. Ambedkar. Uh, Based on my knowledge, I think we always talk about example separate electorate. I think everyone knows about that. People who read Dr. Ambedkar. Right, Sampaji, you are aware about separate electorate and what happened with that. So I think roundtable conferences, when if you read those talks and writings during that time, as per my perspective, and I think based on Dr. Ambedkar's vision, the voting right was most important for him beyond separate electorate.
Truly.
Yeah. So, and because there was a discussion about adult franchising, like people who have some education, and that this was there in a lot of other developed economies, where people who are in certain class only have ability to vote. And Dr. Ambedkar addressed that beyond anything else, he think that that is the most important right, and that is most important power people have in the retaining the democracy of India.
There were opponents to common franchise on the basis of the ability to vote.
Yes.
To have
So
property, only those who have property are educated, so blah blah blah.
yes. So
Anti-democracy fellows were posing a lot of trouble to Baba Sahib Ambedkar.
yes. So right now, I think it is most important. Uh, yes. So it is, I think, a right, most important right, and not only right, but also how Amartya Sen talked about this quite interestingly. Like people may have certain rights, but do they have entitlement to deliver that freedom? So people may, in earlier times, they were restricted to go cast their vote. Um, in modern times, there are a lot of other avenues to manipulate the voting system. So I think it is important um to look at this area. I think, which is, I think, different topic. Maybe we can, or already there was talk on this topic, but I think it is important how one can, as a community, look at not only and the burden is not only on people who are supportive of Dr. Ambedkar's vision, but also it is question for all masses, all intellectual masses, or even people who are thinking about one ideology nation, or so to sustain country with so much diversity and so much differences. I think to retain that as a nation, I think it is important to count and listen to each vote and people who of different opinions. So otherwise, it is difficult to sustain as a democratic institution. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Santosh,
Sir.
I'm Lakshmaya, sir. Lalit, I'm sorry, I was in flight at that
Yes.
time. Lecture started. I sorry to say, I listened after half an hour. Then I think it's a very unique and interesting subject. Not only interesting subject, is the many issues you told very in detailed and very new perspective. I think congratulate, and I think I sorry to say all of us, particularly my brother Santosh Rawat, absent. I think he upset something. Anyway, another thing is I want to tell you on behalf of organizers and organizations, this lecture should be kept in YouTube. And another thing, we are going to have a series of lectures into book form. That is also we are thinking. It could come in book form, all lectures. Then third thing is we are going to have one congregation of all scholars who gave lectures on Constitution, the 75 lecture series in 2026 January in Hyderabad. I think this is also one big event we are going to organize in India, in Hyderabad. I think Laliji should come and join with us in India. Please plan for it. If it is any problem, we can have a discuss and your travel plans. I think Santosh will also come, whatever time. That's a big gathering. The on Constitution, whoever, not only the lectures, whoever they are thinking, also we can uh, invite. We are thinking now. Thank you very much, Lalji. I think I didn't talk to you, but on behalf of us, Santosh will first talk to you. You mobilized and attended and gave a decent lecture, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, behalf of CDS family and Mallepriya Lakshmi sir and team, and behalf of all the audience, I express my heartfelt thank to Lalit. Thank you very much, Lalit, for sparing time in spite of your busy schedule. And I also wanted to invite all audience for next Saturday. Lalit is also a psychologist and work in area of trauma and reconciliation and resilience uh, area at Pacific University, is going to speak extremely important topic on caste psychology and constitution. I would like to invite all of you next Saturday same time in this series of talks. And thank you very much, Lalit, once again, behalf of CDS and all the organizations that are organizing this wonderful talk series. And what a wonderful proclamation by Lakshmaya sir to bring you a sort of edited volume of these talks by significant speakers, though so far those who have spoken on this platform. And thank you very much, Lakshmi sir, for that offer, and congratulations for great gathering in January 2026.
I think, Santosh, it is a very big scholars meet, a congregation. I think it's a good thing. Definitely, we will do nothing any short of it, but you have to plan for it. Hmm.
Yeah,
Thank you, Laliji. Thank you very
and
much. When please plan for it January.
okay.
Yes.
Hmm?
And I'm not at
Thank
all upset. I was just trying to keep focused discussion. That's it. That's my job. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Jai
Thank you
Bhim,
for
Jai Bhim.
organizing, and congratulations and all the best for future work. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim to all. Thank you. हाँ भगतराम जी, प्रोग्राम कैसे चेंज कराया यार? ये प्रोग्राम क्यों चेंज कराया रात का?